South Africa versus Malta. South Africa is the southernmost country in Africa. With over 60 million people, the country is the world's 23rd most populous nation and covers an area of 1,221,037 square kilometers. South Africa has 3 capital cities, with the executive, judicial, and legislative branches of government based in Pretoria, Bloemfontein, and Cape Town, respectively. The largest city is Johannesburg. About 80% of the population are Black South Africans. The remaining population consists of Africa's largest communities of European, Asian, and multiracial ancestry. Malta, on the other hand, is an island country in the European Union consisting of an archipelago in the Mediterranean Sea and considered part of southern Europe. It lies 80 kilometers south of Sicily, 284 kilometers east of Tunisia, and 333 kilometers north of Libya. The official languages are Maltese and English, and 66% of the current Maltese population is at least conversational in the Italian language. In this video, we will be comparing these 2 countries to see which is better than the other in certain aspects. But first, if you are new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notification so you don't miss any of our videos. Let's begin with geography. It's worth emphasizing that the size of a country's land area is an essential consideration. This is because living in huge countries with greater space, which may give people and visitors with more options, is appealing. South Africa has a surface area of 1,219,090 square kilometers, while Malta has a surface area of 316 square kilometers. All this area constitutes areas covered by forests, areas used for agricultural purposes, and the rest of the areas inhabited by citizens of the respective countries. Forests are a big part of a country's landscape and overall ecosystem. The percentage of land covered by forests has a key role in removing pollutants and cleansing the air. The percentage of South Africa's surface area covered by forest is 7.6%, while that of Malta is 0.9%. This means you will breathe fresher air in South Africa than in Malta. Agricultural land is important to a nation's GDP and overall development. The percentage of land dedicated to agricultural use, including arable land, permanent crops, and permanent pasture, is 79.4% in South Africa, and in Malta is 32.3%. This means that South Africa's GDP from the agricultural sector is higher than that of Malta. Demography. A country's population is an important factor to consider before relocating to that country or location. Because of their huge economies, they provide higher employment prospects. Big cities are major cultural centers and research hubs, and they attract companies and economic investment. South Africa has a population of 57.73 million, while Malta has a population of about 0.49 million people. This population is unevenly distributed. Some parts of the country will have more people and some parts less. This is known as population density. Population density shows how cramped or spread out inhabitants are. Countries with high population densities can be considered overpopulated, which can be a problem if the infrastructure is underdeveloped. South Africa has a population density of 47 people per square kilometer, and Malta has a population density of 1,510 people per square kilometer. Usually, this population grows over time, which coins the word average population growth rate. The average population growth rate reflects the annual increase or decrease in population. Currently, the world's population is growing at a rate of approximately 1.07% per year. The higher the growth, the more dynamic society feels. South Africa has an average population growth rate of 0.97% per year, while Malta has an average population growth rate of 0.99%. Malta's population is definitely growing at a faster rate than South Africa's. Every country has a life expectancy age, Malta and South Africa inclusive. The average life expectancy at birth is the number of years that the population of a country is expected to live. This metric reflects the overall quality of life. South Africa has an average life expectancy at birth of 64.1 years, and Malta has an average life expectancy at birth of 82.7 years. This means a Maltese would likely live longer than a South African. The average life expectancy at birth for Maltese's female population is 84.8 years, higher than that of South Africa, which is 65.5 years. Also, the average life expectancy at birth for Maltese's male population is 80.6 years, still higher than that of South Africa, which is 62.7 years. Now, the population of a country is affected by two key factors: the birth rate and the death rate of that country. The death rate, also called the crude death rate, represents the number of annual deaths per 1,000 people at mid-year. The death rate in Malta is 7.9 per thousand, and the death rate in South Africa is 9.3 per thousand. This makes sense since the Maltese live longer than South Africans. The birth rate, also known as crude birth rate, refers to the annual number of births per 1,000 people. Calculated mid-year, it is one of the main factors used to determine the population growth rate. The birth rate in Malta is 10 per thousand, while the birth rate in South Africa is 19.9 per thousand. The fertility rate, which is the average number of children born to each woman, also accounts for birth rates. For calculating the total fertility rate, it is assumed that all women leave to the end of their childbearing years and give birth in alignment with the prevailing age-specific fertility rates in the country. Malta has a total fertility rate of 1.48 children per woman, and South Africa has a total fertility rate of 2.26 children per woman, meaning South African women are most likely to put to birth than Maltese women. Generally, a lower median age is considered better because a younger population is healthier. However, countries with an extremely low median age are often facing socioeconomic problems, especially poverty. South Africa has an average female median age of 27.6 years, and Malta has an average female median age of 43.1 years. In contrast, the average male median age in Malta is 40.6 years, and the average male median age in South Africa is 27.2 years. Economy. The standard value-added tax rate in South Africa is 15%, and in Malta is at 18%. The GDP reflects the value and productivity of an economy. It measures the market value of all the final goods and services produced annually. To reflect the differences in the cost of living and inflation rates, we show the GDP at purchasing power parity. The GDP of Malta is $22.8 billion, and that of South Africa is $814.15 billion. Also known as government debt or national debt, public debt refers to the sum of all government borrowings owed to lenders within the country. The public debt of Malta is 50.7% of Maltese's GDP, and the public debt of South Africa is 53% of South Africa's GDP. The GDP per capita is calculated by dividing the total GDP by the number of people living in the country. A higher GDP per capita indicates a superior standard of living. Malta has a per capita GDP of $48,246, and South Africa has a per capita GDP of $13,865. Now, on to the real GDP growth rate, which represents the year-over-year GDP growth, calculated by taking into account the price fluctuations caused by inflation. The real growth GDP of Malta is 6.7%, and the real growth GDP of South Africa is 1.3%. One other factor affecting the economy is inflation. The inflation rate represents the annual price increase for goods and services, indicating a decrease in the purchasing power of a country's currency. South Africa has an inflation rate of 5.3%, while Malta has an inflation rate of 1.3%. A low unemployment rate indicates better career opportunities and economic growth. South Africa has an unemployment rate of 27.5%, while Malta has an unemployment rate of 4.6%. The total amount of public expenditure on education also affects the economy. Public spending on education includes direct expenditure on schools, universities, and other types of educational institutions, as well as educational-related public subsidies. Malta has dedicated 5.3% of its GDP towards public spending, and South Africa has dedicated 6.1% of its GDP to public spending. The number of young people between the ages between 15 and 24 who are unemployed during a specific year also determines how fast or how slow the economy of a country grows. The youth unemployment rate is calculated as a percent of the total youth labor force. South Africa has a youth unemployment rate of 53.4%, while Malta has a youth unemployment rate of 11.3%. The total amount of public and private health expenditure on medical and paramedical services in Malta is around 9.3% of GDP, and the total amount of public and private health expenditure on medical and paramedical services in South Africa is around 8.11% of GDP. The total labor force of a country represents the number of people working or willing to work. South Africa has a total labor force of 22.19 million people, while Malta has a total labor force of 0.21 million people. The percent of the total labor force comprised of young males from ages 15 to 24 who are unemployed during a specific year. In Malta is about 12.2%, while in South Africa is a whopping 49.2%. Also, the percent of the total labor force comprised of unemployed young females from ages 15 to 24, and in Malta is 10.2%, while in South Africa is 58.9%. Let's conclude this point with military and security expenditures. The total amount of public expenditure on military and security services, such as military forces, police, and public security in Malta is around 0.53% of GDP, and the total amount of public expenditure on military services in South Africa is 1.07% of GDP. Thus, that of South Africa is higher. Infrastructure. The infrastructure, or physical and economic foundation of a nation, is what keeps a country operating smoothly. Infrastructure such as roads, bridges, waste management, and telecommunications equipment are just a few types of infrastructure that people use daily. Now onto road. The total length of the South Africa's paved and unpaved roads stands at 750,000 kilometers, while that of Malta is 2,254 kilometers. In the case of air travel, the existence and number of airports indicate how well a country's cities are connected to various international locations, as well as its worldwide accessibility. In this light, the total number of airports in South Africa is 566, which is higher compared to the total number of airports in Malta, which is just one. That is, both local and international airports. Let's conclude this point with the percentage of internet users in both countries. The percentage of the Maltese's population using the internet is 77.3% higher than that of South Africa, which is 54%. Quality of life. Beginning with obesity. An obese adult has a body mass index of equal to or greater than 30. Obesity is a public health problem and increases the risk of chronic diseases. The percentage of adults considered obese in South Africa is 28.3%, and the percentage of adults considered obese in Malta is 28.9%. Also, the percentage of Maltese's population living below the poverty line, as reported by official statistics, is 16.3%, and the percentage of South Africa's population living below the poverty line is 16.6%. Again, the percentage of Maltese's population with access to improved drinking water sources, such as piped water or protected wells, is 100%, while the percentage of South Africa's population with access to improved drinking water sources, such as piped water, is 93.2%. On another light, the number of physician generalist and specialist medical doctors per 1,000 people. According to the World Health Organization, there should be more than 2.3 health workers per 1,000 people in order to cover the primary healthcare needs. South Africa has 0.91 physicians per 1,000, while Malta has about 3.83. School life expectancy represents the number of years of schooling that children are expected to complete. School life expectancy includes primary to tertiary education. Malta has a school life expectancy of 16 years, while South Africa has a school life expectancy of 14 years. Conclusion. Overall, both South Africa and Malta are great countries with strong economies. However, according to statistics, Malta seems to be greater in many aspects than South Africa. Or what do you think? Drop it in the comment section below. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like the video, and also share it with your friends.